Hey, this is Jeff with Startup Therapist. We've got a fantastic guest today, David Cohen in Boulder, Colorado. How are you, David?
I'm doing great. Great to see you.
It's good to see you as always. Thank you for making a few minutes for us. So let me briefly introduce you, David, and then we'll kind of get right into it. And we're going to focus, as always, on the people part of startups. That's really the focus at Startup Therapist. David is an extremely modest individual, but he is one of the pioneers of the accelerator movement. So you've been running TechStars for almost 10 years now, right? Coming up on 10?
Yeah, getting there. It's I guess about eight and a half.
Got it. Yep. TechStars was originated in Boulder. It's now in cities across the country, around the world, I think. And is that right?
Yeah, U.S. and Europe today.
Okay.
Yep.
The model is to accept sharp founders or co-founders with bright ideas, work through a structured program that is mentor-driven, give them all kinds of services in exchange for a bit of equity in the company, and then continue with them, presumably after the program, to maximize their success. Is that a decent summary?
Absolutely. It's a lifelong relationship with those founders, even though it's a 3-month program in the accelerator.
Got it. And you've also, prior to starting TechStars, started, 3 or 4 of your own companies? At least.
At least that many, yes.
You're
success and failure in those. Yep.
Good. So you've been on both sides of it.
Absolutely.
Good. So let's dive right in. With what I call the Shark Tank movement, right? This huge interest in entrepreneurship and people becoming founders. I guess a good place to start is, you've worked with so many startups. What is the biggest myth of entrepreneurship? What is the biggest myth about becoming a founder and leading a startup? Something that would surprise most non-founders.
That it's just all fun, right? It's all fun every day, and you get to come to work in jeans and flip flops, and it's just a ball, and you're going to change the world, and anybody who's changing the world thinks that's going to be relatively straightforward, and people are going to flock to them, and the truth is there's incredible ups and downs in entrepreneurship, I think.
Most entrepreneurs see, the Steve Jobs and the Mark Zuckerberg, et cetera, especially as they're just portrayed in the media as these idols. How does the reality differ from that? Or how do you kind of explain to someone that those are, maybe you don't agree with this or not, but kind of those are the 1 in a million shots, the 1 in a billion shots?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all watched the Facebook movie, and great movie. I think it inspired a lot of people to go become entrepreneurs. But I think you're right. I mean, we read about the YouTube founders or Zuckerberg, and we see the story and the movie that's made about them, and they are 1 in a million or tens of million out there that are trying to do this. And of course, the stories that we all celebrate are just all positive stories, and it's all about all the great stuff that happened. But I guarantee you, in every case, there was a lot of agony, a lot of pain, and a lot of ups and downs. But for the ones that we read about, obviously the outcome is all worth it for those founders. But it's quite rare that it actually turns out that way.
And a founder is really stepping into a situation where the odds are tremendously against them, right? The odds are that they will fail, just statistically, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's one of the things we're trying to change with TechStars, but it even in that context, ultimately, not everyone's going to be successful. But I think you want to find ways to change the game and give yourself more chances of being successful, because you're right, as you know, right, and I know full well, most of them don't work out in the end.
Have you been able to identify some things that entrepreneurs can do to change the odds or improve the odds? Obviously, going through a program like yours is one way, but what are the subparts of the program that you think make the difference?
Yeah, so, there are different ways to get it, but I think the big thing that I always talk about is surrounding yourself with amazing people. And there are many ways to do that. TechStars is one way to do that. We think it's a good one, but, there are certainly others at that level. I think it's, can you get mentorship and help from people who have been there before, seen that before, and are not telling you what to do, but helping you understand what happened to them, right? And sort of being Socratic in their approach. Those people know investors, those people know customers, those people know business partners. Business is a great networking game, and if you can find a way to massively accelerate your own network, that has tremendous impact on your odds of ultimately being successful if what you're doing makes sense and you're a good entrepreneur.
Right. So I guess 99% of applicants don't get accepted. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's about right. And we always tell them the number one reason that we're not accepting you is because we got more excited about other stuff, right? And that's certainly true for a lot of them, but and many of them will come back and apply later and get accepted later, and that's just evolution of the process. And of course, some of them don't work at all.
So you've worked with 600 companies or so far have gone?
Yeah, we're scaled up quite a bit. So I think we have almost 200 that are going to be funded this year.
Fantastic.
So about 700 total. They've raised about 1.8 billion, worth about 5 billion. So a very fast growing portfolio.
Incredible. So what do you, when you look at the numbers, what have you concluded when you kind of think about the concept, the idea, versus the founder or co-founders?
Yeah.
How much of success, and I guess you could also say luck and timing, right? Or things you cannot control. For what do you attribute, or how many points would you allocate to those buckets?
Yeah, so we have 6 things in order that we always talk about at TechStars that we look for when we're selecting a company, and I'll give them to you right in order because the order matters a lot, right? How do we think about it? The first one is team. Why are they doing what they're doing? How do they get together? What's the talent level at team? Number 2 is actually team, and number 3 is also team. And then number 4 is market, right? What are they doing? What market are they in, right? And number 5 is progress. We have this theory that entrepreneurs do stuff. They don't just talk about doing stuff. So, are they making progress? Which I like to put at number 6 to demonstrate that it's last, if for no other reason. It has value. We think of it as bonus points, but man, team at the early stage, we'll help them if they're in a good market, right? And they're people who do stuff and are passionate about what they're doing. We'll help them figure out the right idea. They'll get the right people around them. I think great entrepreneurs get to the right thing eventually.
So the market and the team take huge priority over the
team number 1, right? I mean, let's put a lot of effort, a lot of focus. So more than half of those points, right, are on team.
Right.
And what does that mean? I think that's the part that for your show is interesting to kind of dive into.
That was my next question.
Yeah, but I mean, so what do you mean, David? Is you say team, right? What does that actually mean? And entrepreneurs always want to know that because we're always talking about how important that is. The way that I like to think about it is, if I'm assessing a group of people, there's all the obvious things, right? Talent level, their ability to communicate well, express a vision, their ability to actually get stuff done, right? I mean, that's stuff you look for, kind of obvious, but maybe the more non-obvious stuff, I'm really looking for a group of people that are doing this from the heart. They are mission-driven. They have a purpose. It is
as
not
opposed to money-driven.
Yeah, as opposed to, hey, I got a spreadsheet out and I compared my 10 ideas, and this seemed like the most lucrative one to go do.
Right.
Which I think could work, but generally is not the real world and not how startups get created. Because at some point they get quite hard, and unless you're genuinely passionate about the change you want to see in the world, right, the vision you have, and you're willing to work through all that stuff that's so difficult and depressing at times, right, that you're not going to get there, right? It's not going to be enough to do it for the money. At some point you'll say, forget it. So it's great that you've checked it with your head, but it came from your heart. That's what I'm looking for. I want to know how you identify with this problem. The first example of this that people always ask me about is Uber. We're first round investors in Uber in the sort of $1.5 million round that they did at the very beginning. They didn't have any cars on the road. The guy that I met was Ryan Graves. He was so passionate about this idea that he was literally at that moment driving across the country from New York to San Francisco to be the first person in that company. And he would light up and talk about how the world was going to be different. And he didn't have it exactly right, but he was pretty right. And he was not going to stop until the world worked like that, right? And even when you talk to him today, he still has that fire. And that's an easy example, but so many of the companies that we work with, that I'm attracted to working with, literally see the future and they're not attached to the solution.
Right.
Right?
They are attached to the problem, not their specific solution.
That's right. And if you tell them, well, what if this doesn't work? They say, well, we'll try to solve that problem a different way. Right? And you can feel that that's genuine, and it's not about the sunk cost, or it's about learning and changing the world and shaping it into what they want it to be.
I think I understand that you feel strongly in the importance of co-founders, multiple founders. Are there exceptions to that rule, and how do you kind of compare and contrast one versus multiple founders?
So I've definitely got a lot of people who've come back to me and said, hey, single founder companies can work, and I'll be the first to tell you, absolutely, right? The beautiful part of startups is there's no rules, right? I mean, anything can work. That's what I love about it. But in our experience, right, across these 700 companies, specific to the context of an accelerator, it is very, very difficult to be successful in that context. So it's not a judgment about single founder companies in general. It's a judgment about those companies in the context of TechStars. And the reason for that is it's very hard to, work on the idea, talk to investors, work with mentors, write the software, right? Do all this stuff by yourself. Right? Because it is a do more faster environment. And so that's really why we don't do it a lot. We have done it. I'll tell you about plenty of companies that are exceptions to any rule. 140 was a company that Laura Fenton founded, ended up over at HubSpot. Fantastic founder. She was outsourcing. She had the capital to do it, and eventually built her team. So it's really about the context more than a general judgment.
Okay, that's very useful. So how about outside of accelerators? Same feeling?
I have the bias, right, which is, again, I know it happens all the time, but my bias is, the person who just walked out of the office is a co-founder of mine at TechStars. I've worked with him across 3 different businesses over 25 years. There were plenty of times across those businesses where I walked into a hallway or a stairwell and literally hit the wall with my fist, just out of frustration for what had happened that day. And you go into that spiral, that cycle, and he would come and say, look, it's one setback, and be in the opposite mood. And the yin and yang of what he's good at and what I'm good at has been very powerful for us. So I have a lot of personal bias and experience with that. And I think if you look at the data, it's quite, it's much more common that multi-founder companies work better.
And is it the typical? It's the most common example. The typical product guy, sales and marketing guy.
Yeah, you hear the hacker and a hustler kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, I definitely favor in my world, which is internet software. You've lived in that world too. I definitely favor more technical teams early on. I like balance, though. I don't like a completely technical team. So in my case, he and I, the guy I was referring to, David Brown, we're both quite technical. Both went to school, studied computer science, done programming, right? He is really good at the business side, and I happen to think I'm good at sort of where the internet is going and maybe the investing side. And in this case, again, it's worked really well for us.
Not just limiting people going through TechStars. What are the biggest causes of stress and anxiety amongst entrepreneurs? We've talked about this recently, the stress belt, depression amongst founders. So just broadly speaking, this crazy roller coaster ride, what are the biggest gotchas or stressors?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to vary a lot, right? Because startups are hard, but I mean, your customers, your investors, your board of directors, it's often people issues, and it's entrepreneurs often live in this weird world of like, oh, I didn't make any income this year. Oh, I didn't make any income this year. Oh, I made a lot of income this year, right? And that can be quite stressful as you're trying to understand your own personal, can I afford this condo or this house or this car or a new printer, right? In some cases. And I think the key, no matter where your stressors are coming from, is to just recognize they're going to be there if you're going to be in entrepreneurship, and make sure you have ways of handling them, dealing with them. Brad is fantastic. His book on startup life, right? Like getting that balance, just having outlets, having ways to deal with that. I have my ways. He has his ways. I'm sure you have your ways. If you don't think about that and proactively put, exercise or time with the family or whatever as a priority, entrepreneurship will eat up all your time, and that stress will be internalized. So it's going to be there. Figure out a plan to deal with it. Talk to people who have dealt with it, and it's like anything. Surround yourself with people that can be useful to help you deal with those things.
So sleep deprivation is not something you recommend to founders.
Well, it's funny, this phrase, do more faster, we say it a lot at TechStars. It's the name of a book that we created. But, when you're in TechStars, it's 3 months, and we say on day one, hey, you're about to go through an unsustainable period of your life. Right. You're about to have this unique opportunity for 3 months. And I want to be clear that we're not trying to teach you to behave like this forever as an entrepreneur. We do think you have a very unique opportunity, right, to be here from 7 in the morning to midnight if you want to, and you'll get a lot of serendipity out of that in this environment. But you need to recognize right after this program, you're going to need to find a way to come out of that phase and find more balance, right? And we're clear about saying that early on, even though we do ask for a lot in that 90-day period.
Got it. Okay, last question, David. For our viewers who are maybe thinking about starting a company, or for current entrepreneurs or founders, are there people that should not be entrepreneurs? In other words, people that should not take this journey, or if they are running the company, they should recruit someone from the outside to test suite and have that person lead the business. What characteristics have you learned just make someone not an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah, I'm sure there are people. I encourage people to, if that's what they want to do, go do it. Not everyone that is a great entrepreneur is someone that you would look at and say, wow, they're going to be a great entrepreneur. So I think if it's something that you have the genuine passion for, like by all means, it's easier today to start a company than it ever has been, right? But if you wake up every day and you just are pissed off and crazy and you do that for like 3 or 4 days in a row, and you think to yourself, maybe this isn't for me, just recognize that that's entrepreneurship. And it's not enough to quit, right? And if you're thinking about quitting at that point after a few hard days, or that you really aren't driven to work through that and solve these problems, then you're probably not cut out to be an entrepreneur for that business. Right. Maybe there's a different business.
It could be a different type of business. It could be a franchise or something else.
But this, I wrote a blog post recently, quitting early, right? Giving up the ghost. And I see this a lot. Like, it's so easy to start an internet company now, and frankly, it's easier to get seed funding than it has been in a long time. And so people are going out and raising $500,000, and they don't get the hockey stick, and they go, "This isn't for me." Yeah. Right. And I think that's in the market today. That's okay, right? You learn that about yourself, and you figure out what you're good at and what you're not. But I don't have a way to heuristically say, person A would be good, person B would not be good.
So then, just the last part of the last question, coming back to your first point about the team being the most important. When they apply, how do you look at a team and say, I think this person can make it as an entrepreneur, or you really don't know until you're in the program?
Well, you certainly do some diligence up front. You know much more, when you put them in a difficult situation that they could excel in, right? And I think, like I said, you're looking at all of the obvious things, right? Like, oh, this person has a GitHub account. They've done some coding. Let's look at that. Let's see how they're rated. Let's try to understand what they've created in the past. What have they done together? Why are they doing this, right? These are all things we ask in the application. And then I get, I or one of the managing directors get on a call with them. And we try to have a 15-minute call max. Got it. And, then we start adding in other dimensions and trying to understand the source of passion, how they're connected to this problem. And also, frankly, we want to like them. Yeah. Life is too short to work with people that you don't enjoy. And we've worked with plenty of people that other people don't like, right? But we want to click with them and share that mission and that vision on some level and be excited to work with those people. And, we go through a progression of calls, and by the end, we're pretty confident that this is a team that could be very successful. And the first thing we say in the orientation is there are 10 companies in this program, and our prediction is that in 90 days, one of you will not be here. Right? There will be a founder breakup. And I think it's been true 45 or 46 times, right, across the different cohorts we've run, that somebody ends up having conflict and leaving.
Got it. Where can people learn more about TechStars and potentially apply?
Just at techstars.com on the web, and I encourage them to reach out to me by email too, david@techstars.com anytime. And plenty of information about the schedule and completely transparent results there, and lots of people you can talk to about the program if you're interested.
Great, David. Thank you so much for your time. This was terrific.
Sure thing. Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.